You found your way to Whispers of Crimes, a quiet corner where the shadows of the past are gently told. Here, we speak of real crimes and mysteries, not to shock or scare, but to wonder, to reflect, and maybe to help you fall asleep. So close your eyes, let your thoughts slow down, and come with me into tonight's case. Mumbai, 2013, in the heart of one of India's busiest cities, just steps away from the Mahalakshmi railway station, lies an abandoned textile mill crumbling, forgotten, and shrouded in silence. But on August 22nd, that silence was broken. A 22-year-old photojournalist entered Shakti Mills with her colleague for a simple assignment. What followed was a brutal, calculated assault by 5 men who had used that same decaying mill to commit another gang rape just weeks earlier. This was not a crime of opportunity, it was a pattern. What happened inside those walls sparked a national reckoning. It exposed systemic failures, ignited outrage, and tested India's newly reformed rape laws in a courtroom battle watched by the entire country. And in the end, it led to a verdict that made legal history. This is the story of survival, justice, and a city forced to confront its darkest truths. Chapter 1: The Forgotten Mill in a Modern City. By 2013, Mumbai, India's financial capital, was a city in transition. Skyscrapers rose rapidly across the skyline, and high-end developments were replacing the old textile mills that had once powered its economy. Nestled behind the bustling Mahalakshmi railway station stood one such remnant of the past, the Shakti Mills compound. Once a hub of industrial activity, it had been left abandoned for years, its red brick buildings overtaken by overgrowth, its structures weathered by time. But the mill was not empty. In its decaying halls and shadowy interiors, it had become a refuge for illegal activity. Drug users, petty criminals, and gangs used the space for their illicit dealings, knowing the police rarely patrolled it. The compound's isolation and size, surrounded by fencing and separated from busy streets, made it a haven for those who wanted to remain unseen. On the evening of August 22nd, 2013, this forgotten structure became the scene of one of the most horrific crimes in Mumbai's history. A 22-year-old female photojournalist, accompanied by a male colleague, entered the compound to photograph the old mill for a magazine assignment. What was meant to be a routine photo shoot during daylight hours quickly turned into a brutal crime scene. The woman was gang raped by 5 men in a carefully orchestrated assault. It wasn't just a spontaneous act of violence, it was a repeat offense. Chapter 2: The attack and its orchestration. At around 6 p.m., as the photojournalist and her colleague explored the abandoned structure, they were confronted by a group of men pretending to be security personnel or government workers. The 5 accused Vijay Jadhav, Salim Ansari, Mohammed Qasim Benjali, Siraj Rahman Khan, and a juvenile had been loitering in the compound, waiting for an opportunity. What followed was a methodical and premeditated attack. The men accused the pair of trespassing and claimed they needed to contact the authorities. As the male colleague attempted to explain their presence, he was separated from the woman. The attackers tied him up with a belt and beat him, rendering him unable to intervene. Meanwhile, the woman was dragged to a secluded part of the mill and raped, one after the other, by the 5 assailants. The assault lasted over 45 minutes. According to medical reports later presented in court, she suffered multiple injuries consistent with violent sexual assault. The men also issued threats, warning her and her colleague not to report the crime. After the attackers fled, the survivor and her colleague made their way to Yaslak Hospital. Despite the trauma, the woman showed extraordinary composure, cooperating fully with the hospital staff and the police. Her account was recorded within hours of the attack, which allowed investigators to act quickly and preserve crucial evidence. This case, unlike many others, benefited from immediate medical attention, clear testimonies, and mounting public outrage, which helped push the investigation forward with unusual speed. Chapter 3: Public Outcry and a Familiar Pattern. News of the gang rape spread rapidly, triggering a national uproar. Just months earlier, India had faced international scrutiny after the 2012 Delhi gang rape and murder of a 23-year-old student aboard a moving bus. That incident had ignited mass protests and forced sweeping changes in India's laws on sexual assault. The Shakti Mills case hit a nerve, this time not in Delhi, but in Mumbai, a city often perceived as safer for women. Within 48 hours, the Mumbai police had arrested the main suspects. During interrogation, the accused confessed not only to the August 22nd attack, but revealed chilling details of another assault that had taken place just 3 weeks earlier. On July 31st, 2013, the same group had raped another woman, a telephone operator, in the exact same location. This earlier survivor had not reported the crime due to fear and shame, a common barrier for rape survivors in India. When police approached her during the Shakti Mills investigation, she agreed to come forward. Her case, coupled with the latest incident, established a dangerous pattern. The accused had targeted vulnerable women in an isolated area, with the knowledge that the chances of being caught were slim. With 2 separate gang rape cases linked to the same set of individuals, prosecutors had strong grounds to invoke provisions for repeat offenders under the newly amended Indian Penal Code. Chapter 4: The Investigation and Gathering of Evidence. The Mumbai police launched a full-scale investigation led by then Joint Commissioner of Police Himanshu Roy. Forensic teams collected evidence from the scene, including broken belts, empty liquor bottles, and biological samples. Crucially, swabs collected from the victim matched the DNA of the accused. The male colleague's testimony also helped corroborate the sequence of events. In addition, CCTV footage from nearby areas showed the accused moving in and out of the compound before and after the crime. The police managed to reconstruct the route taken by the attackers and identified witnesses who had seen them. Within days, charges were framed under multiple sections of the Indian Penal Code, including 376D, 376E, 377, 506, and 120B. The swiftness of the investigation was unusual for Indian criminal cases. In many instances, rape cases linger for years with delayed justice. But in this case, due to the strength of the evidence, media pressure, and the survivors' cooperation, police were able to prepare a watertight case file within weeks. The trial was set to begin at the Mumbai Sessions Court in early 2014. Chapter 5: The Courtroom and Law. The trial was conducted by a fast-track court in accordance with the Criminal Law Act of 2013, passed in the wake of the Delhi gang rape. This law introduced stricter punishments, including the death penalty for repeat offenders. Public prosecutor Ujjwal Nikam represented the state, a well-known figure in Indian legal circles with experience in high-profile cases. Both survivors, the photojournalist and the telephone operator, testified in court. Their statements were detailed and consistent, adding to the strength of the prosecution's case. Medical reports confirmed the extent of the injuries. The defense tried to argue that the sexual acts were consensual or that the victims had fabricated their accounts. However, the overwhelming forensic evidence and witness testimony dismantled these claims. In March 2014, the court found all 5 accused guilty of gang rape and related charges. Then came a historic decision. On April 4th, 2014, 3 of the men, Jadhav, Anzari, and Bengali, were sentenced to death under Section 376E of the IPC, becoming the first convicts in India to receive the death penalty for being repeat rapists under the new law. The fourth adult, Siraj Khan, received a life sentence, and the juvenile was sentenced under the Juvenile Justice Act. The verdict sent shockwaves through the legal community and the public. It was seen as a powerful statement that repeat sexual offenders would face the harshest possible consequences under Indian law. Chapter 6. National Impact and Legal Precedent. The Shakti Mills case marked a turning point in how India responded to sexual violence. For one, it reinforced the importance of prompt legal and investigative action. The conviction was secured within 8 months of the crime, an unusual feat in the Indian judicial system. More importantly, the case became a test for India's new legal framework surrounding sexual violence, especially the provision allowing capital punishment for repeat offenders. Women's rights activists praised the judgment, though some civil rights groups raised concerns about the use of the death penalty. Nevertheless, the verdict was upheld by the Bombay High Court in 2019, which reaffirmed the lower court's decision and stated that the crime fell into the category of rarest of the rare. Beyond the courtroom, the case contributed to heightened public awareness about women's safety, especially in urban environments. It also exposed how abandoned public spaces could become breeding grounds for criminal activity. The media, too, faced scrutiny with debates about responsible reporting, survivor privacy, and the ethics of naming victims. The survivor of the photojournalist attack, whose name was never publicly released in accordance with Indian law, later gave a written statement emphasizing justice, not revenge. She said she wanted to be known not as a rape victim, but as someone who stood up and fought back with dignity. Chapter 7. Legacy of a Crime Scene. The Shakti Mills compound was sealed off after the incident. Concrete barriers were erected, and access was restricted to prevent further misuse. In many ways, the site became a symbol of everything that was wrong and right about India's justice system, a place where horror unfolded, but where justice for once came swiftly. The case continues to be cited in legal studies, media discussions, and feminist writings as a turning point. It laid bare the vulnerabilities of women, even in supposedly progressive cities. It also sparked changes in public policy, increased funding for women's helplines, and renewed emphasis on police training in handling sexual assault cases. But perhaps the most enduring legacy lies in the courage of the survivors. Their willingness to testify, to face the media glare, and to stand firm in the face of societal stigma helped create space for others to speak out. In a country where rape survivors are often shamed into silence, they stood as examples of resilience. Though the mill is now abandoned and silent, the echoes of what happened there continue to shape conversations about safety, justice, and the kind of country India aspires to be. That's all for tonight's story. Another thread in the web of true crime, quietly unraveling as the night goes on. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if sleep has already taken you, may your dreams be peaceful and your mind at ease. I'll be here next time by the fire with another story waiting to be told. Good night, and don't forget to lock your doors.